You can hold a rock worth less than the dirt under your boots, or you can hold the exact same looking rock with a few $100s of crystal sealed inside it. And from the outside, there is no way to tell the difference until you break it open the right way. That is the strange part of gem hunting nobody tells you when you start. The prize is never on the surface. It is armored, hidden, and waiting behind a shell that looks like every other worthless cobble on the hillside. Today we are breaking down 5 rocks you can actually crack open to find diamonds, amethyst, agate, tourmaline, and more, hiding in plain sight on public land for the cost of a hammer. Here is the problem most people run into. They see rock hounding online and think it means wading through a river panning for gold flakes or paying $200 for a polished amethyst cluster at a gem show that somebody else already dug up, cut, and marked up for retail. That works, but it is slow, expensive, and it teaches you nothing about how gems actually form. Meanwhile, there are ordinary-looking rocks sitting in road cuts and dry washes across the country that are functionally sealed treasure boxes, and almost everyone walks straight past them because a dull, dirty exterior does not look like it belongs in a jewelry store. That mismatch between what a gem host looks like and what a gem looks like is exactly why most people never find anything, even when they are standing on productive ground. Here's the shift in thinking that changes everything. You stop looking for sparkle on the outside and start looking for the type of rock that is capable of holding sparkle on the inside. Geologists have known for well over a century that crystals do not usually grow out in the open. They grow inside cavities, fractures, and gas pockets, sealed off from the world, while mineral-rich fluids slowly deposit layer after layer of quartz, calcite, or something rarer. The rock around it is just a container. Learn to recognize the container and you stop wasting your energy on the wrong rocks entirely. The idea itself goes back further than most people assume. Miners in Brazil and Uruguay were cracking open plain-looking volcanic nodules for amethyst geodes generations before anyone systematized the process into modern rock hounding. Oregon's thunder eggs got their name from Native American legend describing thunder spirits hurling the rocks at each other during storms, long before geologists explained they were rhyolite nodules packed with agate, and diamonds carried up from the mantle. Inside kimberlite pipes were being mined in South Africa in the 1870s, decades before anyone fully understood the volcanic plumbing that put them there. People have been reading rocks for their hidden contents for a very long time. What changed is that this knowledge stayed inside geology departments and mining companies instead of spreading to casual collectors. The science behind it is simpler than it sounds. Picture a bubble of gas trapped inside cooling lava, or a hollow pocket left behind in volcanic ash, or a crack running through limestone. Groundwater moving through the surrounding rock picks up dissolved silica, calcium, or other minerals, and every time that water sits still inside the cavity, it deposits a microscopically thin layer before moving on. Do that for thousands or millions of years and you get a lining of quartz, agate, or calcite thick enough to fill the whole pocket. Kimberlite works differently. It is not slow deposition, it is violent transport. Deep in the mantle, at pressures and temperatures that turn carbon into diamond, a specific kind of volcanic eruption blasts a narrow pipe straight up to the surface, dragging chunks of mantle rock and occasionally diamonds along for the ride. Same basic idea though, something moves valuable material into a rock, and then the rock closes around it. The honest reason most people never learn this is not some industry cover-up, it is just that rock hounding sits at an odd intersection of hobbies. Mineralogy departments teach the science, but rarely teach fieldcraft. Rock shops and gem dealers make their money selling finished, polished material, so there is little incentive to teach customers how to find their own for free. And a lot of casual rock hounding content online skips straight to swing a hammer and see what happens, which burns through good specimens and teaches people the wrong lesson fast. The information about which rocks to target is not secret. It is published in geological survey reports and Rock Hound Club newsletters. It is just scattered and rarely packaged as a simple field guide. You can see the proof of this everywhere gem districts are documented. The Ron Coleman mine in Arkansas still lets visitors dig for real diamonds inside a kimberlite pipe, and people find them most weeks. Crystal collectors work active pegmatite quarries in Maine and California, pulling out tourmaline and beryl that outclass anything in a jewelry counter. Rockhound clubs across the Pacific Northwest still map thunder egg beds by the same rhyolite geology that produced Oregon's state rock. None of this is fringe activity. It is a working hobby with real, repeatable results once you know what container you are looking at. So here is how you actually apply it in the field, rock by rock. First, geodes. Look for lumpy, rounded nodules with a rough, dirty rind, often lighter than a solid rock of similar size because there is hollow space inside. Score a line around the middle with a chisel and split it along that plane instead of smashing straight through, which protects any crystal points growing inward. Second, thunder eggs, found in the same rhyolite volcanic country as geodes. These look like dense round cobbles with almost no visual clue on the outside. but a clean cut or split straight through the center can reveal banded agate, jasper, or a star-shaped pattern in the core. Third, kimberlite, the rare deep-sourced volcanic rock that carries diamonds up from the mantle. It shows up dark greenish-gray, feels unusually soft for a volcanic rock, and often contains rounded olivine grains along with indicator minerals like garnet, ilmenite, and chrome diopside. You're not hunting for a hollow crystal chamber here. You are breaking the rock into manageable pieces and scanning the matrix under a hand lens for that cargo. Fourth, pegmatite, the coarse-grained granite-like rock where crystals grow oversized because the melt cooled slowly with unusual water content. Look for chunky feldspar, books of mica, and sudden jumps in crystal size. Then work carefully around any myrolitic cavity, the open pocket where tourmaline, beryl, or topaz crystals can be sitting loose and easily damaged by a careless blow. Fifth, amygdaloidal basalt, ordinary-looking dark lava riddled with old gas bubbles that later filled with agate, calcite, or zeolite. Scan the broken face for rounded, contrasting colored spots, and target those spotted zones instead of pulverizing the whole block. None of this works without a few honest safety notes. Wear eye protection every single time, because rock chips do not care how careful you think you're being. Confirm you are on public land or have explicit permission before you swing a hammer, since collecting on private or protected land can end access for every collector who comes after you. And keep your expectations calibrated. Most kimberlite is barren. Most thunder eggs are plain rock inside, and finding nothing is still useful information about that hillside, not a wasted trip. What this really comes down to is a small shift in how you look at ordinary ground. Somewhere between the road cut you drive past every day and the dry wash nobody bothers walking, there is very likely a rock that looks like garbage and is not. The hobby is not about luck. It is about learning to read a handful of container rocks well enough that the next time you see one, you already know it is worth the swing. That is Hidden Fix Lab. Look closer at the rock everyone else already walked past.